Welcome along to Man in the Mirror. It's Hayden here, and this week I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Ben James, who is a model and content creator. Good morning, Ben. How are you?
Good morning, Hayden. Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm really good. Look, thank you so much for doing this. And as I mentioned in the introduction, we met a couple of months ago at a Creed launch, and sometimes these events are bigger parties where everyone's mingling around, but this was a lunch, so we got to sit next to each other, and I really enjoyed your company, and I was sort of storing it away, thinking actually it'd be really great to get Ben on the podcast and to sort of retell some of these stories, and I was sort of fascinated by your background and all the things that you're up to, and I knew it would interest the listeners of the show. So yeah, I mentioned you're a model and a content creator, but you're
Yeah.
a plus size model, which sounds sort
Yeah.
of damning you with faint praise. It doesn't sound that it sort of doesn't
It's
feel
almost
very
like a
flattering.
backhanded compliment, isn't it? It's a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah. So explain it, because I don't know. Is it about your height or what?
well, it's funny. It's a funny old world, is that world. So yeah, basically it's a game of numbers. It's a game of measurements. So the industry,
It's all
the,
about
the,
numbers.
yeah, it always is. So the industries typically run on sample sizes. So everybody in
Right,
the industry, whenever a brand typically produces a garment, they do it. It's what they call sample sizes. And for men, that's traditionally basically a medium. And it's
right.
simply I don't know the process, I don't know the reason or the logic why, but that's basically just how it is. It's always a medium size medium, and that when you're talking from a model's perspective would normally mean your chest has to be about 38 inch, your waist has to be about 30 to 32 inch maximum, and your height is typically 6 foot, maybe 6'2" maximum.
Right.
You don't typically tend to be any much larger than that, and often not even much smaller than that. And then in comes me at 6'6", about a 42-inch chest, about a
Right.
34, 36-inch waist. And then that's what quantifies me as plus size or big and tall or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they start using all these kind of backhanded terms to just say, you just go big fella.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of my shtick. That's my niche, I guess. That's kind of why I have why I get jobs in what I do. And
And I
that's it.
suppose
Yeah.
that's the way of looking at it, isn't it? I mean, does it mean that you tend to be in that world? The kind of campaigns you get are for taller guys. Is that how it works, or
Yeah,
you're
that's
sort of
correct.
part
Yeah,
of a
and
mix?
no, that's the correct observation. And actually, that is quite it's quite frustrating because obviously it means you've got a very small market that you can play in. You've got a very small pool of clients that you can even aim for. But it also means that I don't know, it kind of costs the consumer a little bit as well because you only ever really see kind of one sort of bloke
Yeah.
everywhere, and it
Yeah.
gets quite boring after a while. I think it's quite nice to mix it, but obviously I'm going to say mix it up because that means there's
Yeah.
more work. Of
Yeah. Yeah.
course I'm
Yeah.
going to say all this stuff, but ultimately, I have loved it in the past where I've been on set and there's like main range guys, big and tall guys, older chaps, younger chaps, whatever, and
Yeah.
it's just more fun. It
What would
just
you call?
makes
What did you
campaign.
call the sort of the mainstream main range? Main
Main
range.
range, yeah,
Main
main range,
range.
yeah,
I've never heard
yeah,
that
yeah.
before.
Just yeah, I don't know if that's just something that like agents use or whatever, but it's the term I always hear get thrown around. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it's a funny little niche. It's a funny little world. It's definitely something I've. Funny enough, you find yourself kind of struggling in sometimes because previously there's been a real emphasis on real size. They really want big guys. You're talking 3XL, 4XL,
Right.
big chaps, and everyone's got an opinion, each their own kind of thing. But it just never seemed healthy for me to be that way.
Yeah.
That was never
Yeah. You wouldn't go out of your way to sort of try to be that big, would you?
yeah. I mean, I'm 6'6", so to be a 3XL, I have to be about 130, 140 kilos, which is like
Yeah.
24 stone, I think. I mean, it's like why? Like, who would want to? It's just not right. It's just not
Yeah.
a way to be. So I lost a lot of clients because of that, because I just refused to
Yeah.
sort of plump up that
And what
way.
kind of clients do you have, Ben? Who do you work? Who might people have seen you in collaboration with?
So you've seen me a lot. I've done work in the past with Calvin Klein, with Tommy Hilfiger, Ted Baker previously, before they obviously just went bust the last couple of weeks, which is
Yes.
a
Yeah.
shame. It's another sort of British retail giant that's gone under, which is a
That's
shame.
right. That's right.
And I guess maybe I was about to list a bit of a graveyard here. Burton, that was one until they went as well.
It's a
But yeah,
shame.
my most recent work you'll see is actually, and this is the most stereotypical one I could say, is Giacomo.
Yeah.
We've got some sort of out of house, what you call out of home campaigns at the moment. So you see
I've
me a lot
seen
on the
you on the
tube.
London Underground. Yeah.
Yeah, so stuff like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, real mixed bag. I have a lot of my clients on the modeling side typically tend to be in Germany as well.
Yeah.
Germany is a really big market on this kind of big and tall thing. That's it's like a really really large market for it.
Yeah.
So
And what were you up to before the modelling, Ben?
yeah, wow, 7 years ago now. So
Hmm.
I was in partnerships. So I was in partnerships and alliances in sport specifically. So it was a job I absolutely loved. Did a lot of work around the sponsorship side of stuff. So working with like the Football Association of Wales, Football Association of Scotland, the English FA, Finnish. Yeah, basically just traveling all around Europe, working with like really big NGBs to grow football in their countries. So it was really cool. Yeah, one of the a job I hold very dearly. It's
Yeah.
something I really enjoyed.
And a very different career path, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally different career path. I mean, the modeling came about, to be honest, it was a little bit like being plucked from obscurity in some ways. It was, I mean, don't get me wrong, I did sort of extend the olive branch initially. I just didn't think it
Was it
would.
the classic, like someone coming up to you in a clothes shop and going, "I think you're gorgeous. Here's my
Yeah,
number."
it's like that little dream we all have where we're like, one day someone's going to see my worth and I'm going to be like, yeah,
We need
that's
you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it was a lot like that. Yeah, so effectively, our first of all was scouted, basically, which is still a practice. A lot of them still do.
Is it?
Yeah, they take to a city, they just go walk the streets and see who they'll find. It's
Oh,
quite
you think it'd be
fascinating,
a bit shady now, like sort of going up to people and saying, "I'm a." But I guess
which
you've
is
got
a
the
bit,
proper
isn't it? It is.
credentials, you know.
Yeah, it is a bit odd, which I always think, well, then, yeah, they must have a process in place to make it work. But yeah, so
Safeguarding.
still, yeah, it's still quite common practice. But yeah, that was effectively it, and I just kind of thought nothing of it because at the time, so it's probably important to explain to the listeners. I did used to be a much heavier chap. So as much as I'm a big guy, I was a very big guy. I was very down and out as a young sort of early 20s. I really struggled with mental health. Had a pretty challenging time growing up, and I just didn't deal with it very well. Um, Dealt with it very well in the sense that I still managed to cope and get through and achieve
Yeah.
things, but was very much just on like a self sabotage journey for years.
So did you take all that stuff internally then? You sort of dealt with it
Yeah,
and
oh, absolutely.
buried it
Yeah, I
away,
was
kind of thing.
correct. Yeah, like it was never. I was always still a very much a gentle giant type, still very caring, very soft, very loving to everyone around me, but internally was just just a miserable place. Drinking a lot, eating a lot, just self soothing in just not in the worst way because there's certainly worse things you can do to yourself and to others, but it was just not a smart decision. It was just feeling sorry for myself. I guess is probably one way of looking at it. So
And Ben,
yeah, once I
was that a sort of gradual? I mean, were you a bigger child as well, or was it a sort of
well, yeah, I mean,
gradual? I mean, obviously it's always gradual, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, I was. I mean, I was a giant kid.
okay,
I make jokes about it, but yeah, I really struggled with it as a young guy. Like it was a really tough place for me to grow up in because I was like 6 foot when I was about 11. So I kind of
wow,
went to you go to secondary school and you've left primary school and you were the biggest in the school, bigger than all the teachers, bigger than most of the parents.
yeah,
You're already standing out like a sore thumb. I was never skinny. I was always just a big, heavy guy. My dad was a rugby player all his life professionally, and I kind of had his genetics, the big jaw and the big, everything just big head, big hands, bloody big. So I never really looked like a child. So which meant I never really got to be a child. It meant I had to sort of be an adult really early, and it was quite a weird place to grow up because we make a lot of jokes, but it's quite tough when you're just like the front of every conversation or every room you walk into. There's comments, and you're only like 9 years old, 10 years old. You hear it all. It does get to you as a young boy.
yeah,
So
and we're not built to withstand that. You're still,
no,
yeah, you say you're still a child, and
yeah,
psychologically that's tough. I remember from the conversation at lunch that really
mm,
struck me, and I must say it wasn't something I'd considered enough. Shame to say, but
yeah,
I think we tend to. I mean, look, you're a model. You're doing amazing things. You a content creator, and I guess you know from the outside, a lot of people will look at all of that and it's an amazing thing. But that thing about being tall and standing out, I guess if you don't know enough about it, like me, you might think, oh god, that's great. He's a tall guy. How brilliant,
mm,
and everyone must you know literally look up to him. But you pointed out that actually standing out isn't always what you want, and being the focus of attention can be a problem as well.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it can be. I think as you become a man and you become into sort of your mature years, it's definitely a great thing. You know, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna sort of sit
So
here
it
with
was
the
more a
Bible going.
child problem. It was a childhood
It's an
problem.
adolescent child problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing is when it's too early, it can really open you up to so many oddities of society. You know, obviously it's like when I say that, I mean men will treat you as a man. You know, you'll be given the aggression that they would give another man. You'll be given the judgment that they would give another man, but you're
Yeah.
still a child. So you have to sort of you're taking sometimes in literal sense hits off
So
these
people
people.
people are wanting to have a pop.
Oh yeah, you'd have people. Yeah, I remember going to the gym for the first time at like 14, and some bloke coming up to me and being like, telling me how he was this professional kickboxer and he's knocked out blokes my size, and he didn't realize I was 14 years old, and he was just a couple of sentences away from really escalating it. And then you start going out
Oh
into
my
sort of playing
goodness.
rugby, or you go on nights out, and you've got people trying to put bottles over the back of your head, and you've got bouncers wanting
What?
to fight you, and it's just chaos all the time. Because I never presented as like a big tough guy. I was, I liked my clothes, I liked my fashion, I liked my,
Yeah.
my
I like a
stuff.
nice watch.
Yeah, correct. So they would see that as like softness in your character. So it was like, oh, you're the perfect target because you're big, but you're a bit soft. So they would really underestimate you. Whereas if you had a shaved head and the skin tight t-shirt and all that, they might back off a bit because
Mum
you're
and
more
dad on
intimidating.
your knuckles and
Yeah, yeah, exactly. If you do all that, but I was never that way. I was more polite, sweeter. That was
but did
the
that
way.
mean, Ben, that then you were sort of forced into confrontations and fights?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you didn't want them, but presumably sometimes you can't. I mean, that would be my worst nightmare because I'm a
Yeah,
scared butter.
that's precisely it. So, luckily, my dad was very hands-on in this area, and he kind of raised me with this knowledge, and was like, "You need to basically understand what life's going to be like for you. You need to figure it out quick because it's going to come at you. You need to learn either how to get out of these situations or thrive in them. You can sort of debunk that however you want."
And
Um,
is that about sort of almost getting the first hit in, or what was the practical advice there? If it wasn't sort of get away, obviously the best thing
oh,
is if you
if
can
there's
you
no
can get
option,
away.
oh, if there was no option, then yeah, you've just got to just give it hell. Just like at the end of the day, the biggest thing you can do is just end the situation as fast as possible. Like that's the key thing. Like the
Yeah,
key thing is to make sure that but the way I was sort of raised with it was at the end of the day, there's always going to be a weight, height, and size disparity, and that
yeah,
will either work for you, against you. And by that, I don't mean being victorious. I mean someone can get seriously hurt, and a lot of these people are just acting stupid in the moment.
yeah.
We don't want anything long term to happen. You don't want someone to hit the head on a curb or any
Oh my god.
ridiculousness. So it was
Did that
really
ever
like
escalate, Ben? Did that get to I mean, were there situations that were really serious or things that were more protracted than they might have been?
yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, so yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I was raised to box
Right.
and sort of
So
learn
you knew how to
MMA.
do it properly then.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, yeah. That
Mm.
was very important. That I needed to. It was no choice. Because, like I say, you'd go play rugby. You'd have to take your passport with you everywhere because no one believes your age. And then when you're on the pitch, you've got dads offering, basically because they've seen you just, annihilate their kid. Which, sorry, I didn't mean to. He just sort of bounced off me or whatever. And then you're in the changing rooms and
They
the
want to have
dads
a
have
go.
coming in, and you've got a dad coming in. It was
Oh
really that
my
ridiculous.
god! And do you think that was that one of the major factors in your some of your mental health issues then, and
Yeah,
putting you on
100%.
the way?
Yeah,
Was it?
yeah, it was. Yeah, because it was like kind of forced to be a person you don't want to be. You're forced to be in situations you don't want to be in. You're kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, it really wasn't a fun place. You'd think it would
Mm,
be. It's a cultural thing. You go to America. Like I lived in the States for a short while, and
yeah.
you go to America and they celebrate it. They think it's great.
Well, I
It's
guess
super
there's that,
positive.
yeah, the gridiron guys and the
Yeah,
jocks, and it's a thing, isn't it? Like you
it's
say,
a whole thing. It's a whole like it's like they believe in you a bit more, and it's like you feel charged by them. You're speaking to them,
mm,
and you're like, God, I can go take over a
big
world,
as
like go take
better
over
and
a
everything.
planet right now. This is a brilliant place to be. Whereas the UK, we do have a very cynical kind of negative mindset. Culturally, we have it anyway. But
Mm,
anybody who's got something we don't have, we naturally just want to tear them down. Whether they're rich or famous or
mm,
pretty or whatever. We just got this cat-like mentality where it's just sort of bring them down to reality. Don't let them think they're something they're not. And it's like,
Yeah.
he's just a 13-year-old kid. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're getting at here. He's not, he doesn't think he's something he's not. He's just a kid. So yeah.
And I'm sure it's sort of complete cod psychology, but do you think part of the weight gain was about almost making yourself, not say less attractive, but less visible? What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was hiding. It was like trying to
Mm.
hide. It was almost like I didn't want the constant like attention. Yeah, I just wanted to just sort of shell up and just be left alone, which is obviously not healthy, not right. And I'm glad I've got my way out of it. But yeah, it was something that I battled with for 5 years. I'd say it
Mm.
probably took about 5 years of my life, which was a real shame. But
And was there then was there
especially they were
kind of
my best years. Now I know what my job is. If I'd have known then, they were the best years. I should have been out there at that point, not now. Jesus,
getting some campaigns?
I know what was I thinking.
And was there a particular turning point in this sort of journey more towards feeling healthier and happier in yourself, and then in towards the modeling? Was there a certain thing that happened, or was it a more gradual thing?
So the modelling side, I'd already begun the weight loss journey. I'd already lost quite a significant amount of weight. I think I'd already dropped about 5 or 6 stone. So I'd
And
already
was that
sort of
about
lost.
just sort of, I need to be, you know, quote unquote
That
healthier,
was
or
actually wasn't about health. It was more about happiness. It was more like I
yeah.
finally was kind of backing myself a bit. And I think I was unlearning a lot of these beliefs. And, I'd kind of really built this self belief that I just was, not worth anything.
Mm,
My self worth was extremely low. And I was just rebuilding those foundations internally, emotionally and mentally. The ironic thing is, even when I was extremely big, I was extremely active. That was the funniest thing. Was not funny. It was not wrong choice of word.
mm.
But people hear these things and think, oh well, you must have been this lazy. And it's
Just on the
no,
sofa all the time watching
yeah,
telly.
and the
Yeah,
irony it wasn't. The thing was, it was just I just drank and ate a lot. So it was like
yeah.
you would see me running. Funny enough. Luckily enough, even there's a guy who can vouch for this. He runs the gym in Morley in Leeds, where I used to live, and he commented on one of my videos quite recently because he would open the gym and every morning I'd be there at 6 a.m. I'd run 10K in the morning and then go to work and then come back and I'd do weightlifting on the night. But I was about 26 stone, and he would literally say to me
He's
all
going,
the time.
how? What were you
He's
doing?
literally he's like, how are your ankles doing this? How are your knees doing this? But I was just very much wired that way. Fitness and performance and endurance was just such a part of my character. It's just a huge thing that I really have wired into me. It's almost part of my being.
Mm,
But I also had this really self-destructive part of me as well, where they don't really support each other very well. They kind of
yeah.
contradict each other.
And I suppose
So
also
one
you're a big guy. Like you can probably pack away a lot of pints and a lot of meals and all that
in my heyday, yeah,
in your
in the glory
prime.
days, it was biblical, mate. I promise you. It was, be stories written about me if it was 100 years ago. Yeah, it was one of those. So
Feasting at a
yeah,
banquet table with swan and chickens and
honestly,
yeah,
I'd have gone toe to toe with any
Tudor
great dwarf
king.
in the past. Yeah, honestly, yeah. Me and old Henry would have
Yeah,
gone toe to toe.
come with me.
But yeah, so yeah, basically that's kind of how it happened. So I'd already sort of begun this journey, and my confidence was slowly climbing, and I was just feeling safer in the world, happier in my own company, and better about who I was. And then this scout element happened, and it kind of put it on my radar. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was,
So
to be
maybe
honest, I
trying to
used to
wind
get
you up.
yeah, but I also used to just get this is maybe a bit weird to say, but I used to get a lot of people kind of fetishize certain elements of you when you're already big. It's quite a thing
Right.
certainly in sort of like in the gay community. You've got these
Yeah.
big bears and that kind of stuff, and I
Yeah.
get a lot of that kind of stuff. So I was like, just be some guy using it as an excuse to get some
Get me
photos
in a
off.
in a
You
photo studio.
just never know. Like honestly, you come across all sorts. And then basically, funny enough, almost fate worthy, the week after, a friend of mine from school, from when I was a young kid, we hadn't spoken for years, and she sent me this link randomly on Instagram and said, "Hey, this guy's doing this thing out in the States. I think you should do it." So I clicked this link, and it was a guy who'd signed over with an agency in New York called IMG, who are kind of one of the biggest in the
Yeah. Yeah.
world. Yeah, incredibly prolific. And he was their first ever big and tall guy. And he was 6'6". He had a 40-inch waist, and he had basically the same measurements I was at the time.
Yeah.
And I just sort of looked at this guy, and I guess maybe it was the bottle of wine that just polished off. But I saw it and thought, if he can do it, I can do it. So I quite literally Googled how to be a model, went online. There was like, take some digitals, take your measurements, do this. My girlfriend at the time, bless her, she very supportive. I said, right, we don't have a tripod. I just need you to go upstairs and you take these really silly photos of me. And I'd never even really taken any photo. Like I was very shy around photos. Stood there, did the Polaroids, did side to sides, did all that stuff, sent it, and then I woke up on the Monday and I had 3 contracts from 3 different
my
agencies, 2 in
goodness.
London and 1 in Hamburg. And we had an apprentice working for us at the time. He was a fantastic kid called Joseph. He was a fantastic kid. He was really tall and he was actually really into fashion, like really into fashion. Funny enough, he was wearing what we all now wear in sort of mainstream now, where people are wearing like pleated trousers and
Yeah.
loafers.
Yeah.
He was wearing this 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And we used to take the mick out of him like you wouldn't believe, because we
Yeah.
were obviously in an office in Leeds. What the hell is this
You
kid
go, what's
wearing?
he doing?
We just didn't know this kid was like nearly a decade ahead of us. He
Yeah.
was really like that bright. And I sort of said to him, "Yeah, is this legit? Is this real?" And yeah, 100%. He said, absolutely. You should consider it. So I had a call with the each agent, each director of each company, just to verify how legitimate it was. And then one of them said, "Look, I've got a job for you on Friday. It's in Denmark. It's shooting for Jack Jones. I think it was about 7 grand for a day's work." And at the
My
time,
goodness.
I was a kid on like 30 grand a year. So I was like, for a
Yeah.
day.
I'll have
I
some
said,
of that.
did they know I'm not a model? And she's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. She said, they know. They just want to shoot you, see how it goes. And I was like, pulled a sickie, flew, did the shoot, rang the agent on that following Monday and said, look, how many more of these have you got? And she said, oh, well, ASOS have just booked you for the next 6 Fridays. Not the same day rate,
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
rate, but still. And what that did actually make up was my annual salary. So I was like, that's my annual salary after 7 days
Kind
work.
of easy decision, right?
I had no kids. I had,
Yeah.
my partner and I were safe. We had a mortgage, but I mean, that's actually safer than renting in many ways.
Mm.
So I just said, well, yeah, let's go for it. So I had him notice him. They
And
put me
did
on
you
garden
take
leave.
to it? What did you on that first shoot for Jack Jones? How did you find the actual, being directed by the photographer and everything?
Loved it. Because I guess from my point of view, my character, I'm really, really chilled out as a person typically. So like,
Yeah.
I was just whatever they want. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's a professional setup. This is a huge brand. This is a huge company. So I'm in safe hands. So I was, well, whatever you want me to do, I'll do. So you just show me some photos and I'll do those. And that's literally what they did. They just
Yeah.
gave me a lookbook, a mood board,
And you took
and
direction well. And
just do that. I said, all right, let's do that. And
yeah.
that was it. We wrapped and everyone was happy. So, and they became a really regular client for like 5
Great.
years. I think we shot with them every 3 months. So yeah, it was a
That's
really
a great
funny. It
story.
just happened really out overnight. So
Yeah. Well, look, Ben, we'll talk a bit more about the modeling and content creating in a second. But yeah, as always on the podcast, I like to find out about the guest's bathroom cabinet, and I guess being a model, it's obviously going to be important to maintain your appearance, and I'm sure you have products that you enjoy using. So I wonder if you could talk me through a few of the hero products in your morning and evening routine.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, products wise, I actually have a really stripped back approach. So,
Do you?
in the past, I have tried a lot of different things where they had a lot of actives and that sort of stuff. The
Mm,
ingredients, but it's a bit too harsh. I just found it really did actually damage quite a lot of my skin. I ended up
yeah.
with just quite a lot of oddities in sort of skin patches and stuff. So I've stripped it right back. So it really is as simple as a basic cleanser, typically CeraVe, something like that, which
Yep.
I know some people are a little bit funny with now because it is a bit of a strong active, but still CeraVe as my cleanser. I actually have here one of my eye serums that I use quite a lot. That's Swear Bites. This is an eye serum from Heath,
Oh
which I
yes,
very much Swear Bites. It's a nice little roller.
I have one of
That's
those
really,
too. Yeah, Heath are great.
yeah, really good for hiding any sins.
Yeah.
And then a really great company called Fjord. So this is my moisturizer. So this is a hyaluronic.
Okay.
It's a pretty heavy moisturizer,
I haven't
but I
heard of that
swear
one
by
before,
that.
Ben. Where
It's
are they
really, really
from?
nice. Yeah. So the brand itself is the brand. So it's Fjord. It's called
Fjord.
FJOR.
Is
Quite
it
premium, but
Scandinavian? Do you think?
I believe so. Yeah,
Yeah,
I believe so. It's
sounds like it, right?
yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, it's made in Sweden.
Oh, Sweden.
It's really, really strong. It's quite a heavy moisturizer, but I use it predominantly on days like today where it's really cold, really fresh.
Yeah.
Because I run a lot as well, it's really good at rehydrating my skin once it's
Yeah.
dried out in cold
Yeah.
winds. And then from there, otherwise, I actually just use an SPF. It can be any SPF really, typically, as long as it's actually good. good quality and it's the real
Yep.
deal. So yeah, SPF, and that's it. That is actually it. So it's basically just clean, moisturize, and protect, and that's basically all I do. I will sometimes use more of a gritty exfoliator, so I might not use a chemical one. I'll just use a more of a gritty sort of
Yeah.
actual sort of grit based one, and yeah, that'd be about it. It's pretty simple from that
So it's
respect.
a, it's a
And then
good tight,
otherwise
good
would
tight
be
regime.
a roller as well.
Oh,
Any kind of gua sha or jade roller. Really good
see,
for
that's
getting
really
out
interesting.
puffiness.
Yeah, I haven't ever
Really good.
used those, but
Yeah, highly recommend. Because like today, I'm very puffy because I'll be honest, I had a bit of a drink last night. It was a good party. We had good fun. So today I'm a
we
little
know
bit.
when Ben drinks, he has a big session.
Yeah, he doesn't not anymore. He used to, not anymore. It's just that I
That's
have
old
actually.
Ben. Old Ben.
That's old me. Yeah, yeah. This one's actually much more controlled, thankfully. Um, but yeah, that really does genuinely help. I thought it was a bit of a gimmick until I tried it, and it does genuinely really help. Kind
So
of,
to take some of the
yeah, it just
fluids
sharpens your
out.
face up. It does genuinely sharpen your face up quite a bit. It really can just. I think a lot of us just have naturally a lot of fluid around our faces, and even if it's just temporary, but
Yeah.
I'll always do it on days that I shoot. That's for sure.
Mm. And what about hair products, Ben? Are you loyal to any
So
particular
I
hair?
actually, again, really stripped back. I actually typically use a sea salt spray, and that's
Mm.
about it. So yeah, I don't really tend to use much more than that. So right now, nothing's in it; it's just washed and left.
Yeah.
Excuse me, but I typically just use maybe a sea salt spray, and that's about it.
Yeah.
I don't like to try and clog, the pores of my scalp up too much.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did recently lose a lot of hair from this area here, kind of out of nowhere. It was very random. It's a very specific area. So I'm just sort of trying to preserve as much as I can
Right.
while the inevitable
Do you
feels
think
like.
that's just a sort of a general aging thing?
Uh,
Do you sort of?
to be honest, no. I had a really bad spell with anemia last year, so I had a bit of a
Oh,
health scare last year. I lost quite
right.
a lot of blood, and sort of struggled to get my health back with that. It's taken a long time to replenish, and it was actually from that. So it's specifically it's almost just a patch here. It's not even here. It's not
Right.
uniform at all. It's just one chunk. So it's very odd,
Yeah.
but hey, it is what
Hmm.
it is. It is what
And
it is.
we met at a fragrance event, as I mentioned, at Creed.
Yeah.
So, what's your relationship with fragrance? Have you got you a guy that's got a sort of fragrance wardrobe, or are you loyal
I
to a couple of
I
signature
actually
scents?
do. I mean, for any video viewers, this sort of just
Yeah,
pointing
show us,
here in
show
the
us, show us.
corner. This is actually the top shelf's mine, and the middle shelf's my partner's. We are both fragrance obsessed. We have,
Yeah.
yeah. She puts me to shame. I genuinely think she might be in over 100 different fragrances she has now. She's been
Wow,
building
that's
it
a
for years.
good collection.
Yeah, she's really, really into it. But for me, I realized I typically tend to always spin around similar things. So this is now almost bone dry out. But Penhaligon's Helfetti, I think, is probably in most
So
people's
good. So
collections.
good.
I know it's a bit almost
Mm.
cliche at this stage, but Penhaligon's Helfetti and also the Helfetti leather, I absolutely love as well. Similar to that on the Helfetti leather, I've also got a Floris Rose 4 by Floris. It's one of my favorites. It is a little bit,
Oh, lovely.
it's very
Yeah.
nostalgic. It's almost quite, to be honest, it is a little bit on the softer and bit more feminine side, but it's just one of my favorite fragrances. It's slightly oody, it's
Yeah.
very rosy, but it's just such a nice, warm,
I love it. Some people
comforting
are a
fragrance.
bit shy to wear rose, or have this misconception that it's more of a, you know,
Mm.
a female note. But of course, why should fragrance notes be gendered? But
Yeah,
anyway, rose is features in a lot of male fragrances, and it's such a beautiful. It suits men. It's beautiful.
it does, yeah. And then on that same note, so I've got Oud Rosewood by Christian Dior as well. So from their sort of
Great.
Privé collection, that's my absolute favorite. That's one I pretty much wear almost every day. More leathery base to it, and it's something I just can never get tired of that scent. And then when I do want something lighter and softer, I've got the Sunlit Clementine and Vetiver
Oh,
from
Molten Brown.
Malt Brown. Yeah, big fan of this one. That's more of my spring summer travel, that kind of note where I will switch to like more of a citrusy
Yeah,
kind of base, and I like
festive
really
for summer.
notes of. Yeah, correct. Yeah, I just go straight over that way, and that's pretty much it in a nutshell. That would summarize it. In the cupboard, there's probably
There's
50
more.
others. Who knows what, but
That's a nice
um,
range, though, Ben. Some
yeah,
good
thank
ones
you. Yeah,
there.
it's
Yeah,
it's uh, it's just a nice little rotation that I just like to sort of play around with. But yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And when we met a couple of months ago, you had a really nice camera with you. So I know that, obviously we talked about the modeling, but you're a
Hmm.
content creator as well and a photographer. So it's important to have other strings to your bow and other things that you do.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say for anybody, it'd be you know. So it's I
No, I
think
agree.
even yeah, I think everybody should always try and diversify
Mm.
monetary monetary revenue streams, but also even just skills. I think it's
Just for
nice to have a
headspace as
broad range.
well, and just to be
Yeah,
creative and yeah.
yeah. I mean, all of them make you. But in my field, each being having a stronger knowledge at either side will make you better at the other. So you know, having a
That's
good
true.
understanding of light and a good understanding of how things look behind the camera inevitably makes you better in front of the camera
Mm.
because you can adapt to environments much better and you'll know, you know, obviously if the light gets too low, you automatically go, great, the photographer's on a slow shutter speed. I need to slow my movements down as a model because that's going to ruin the image. So
Yeah.
it's things like that that you either learn by being either side. So yeah, no, the photography side, ironically, I enjoy far more.
Mm.
I actually don't really like being in front of the camera that much. I'm not really that bothered about it. It's neither here
Mm.
nor there for me. It's a job, but being behind it is where I get more of my more sort of passion comes out. That's where more creative
And do you
side from.
shoot people or still life or anything?
So yeah, I've worked with quite a few people in the past. So I've had some published work in the past on the modeling side and the fashion side, which has been pretty
Mm.
good. Over in the States, I've shot with a lot for a lot of those brands like Anthropology, Forever 21. Yeah, a few of the guys over there, which is pretty fun.
Great.
But over here, to be honest, I actually typically just shoot myself. I know it's a little bit selfish, but the job does demand that, you know, some of these clients do want quite high end imagery, and
Yeah.
because a lot of it's quick turnaround or it's at odd times or you're that busy, you can't really make it work with someone else. So it's easier for me to just shoot my own stuff. So a lot of my portfolio and a lot of that sort of stuff is just self shot.
Mm. And there's
Yeah.
some really nice watch content on your channel as well, Ben. I know
Yeah,
that's
thank
an
you.
interest of yours.
It is, yeah, yeah. Watches has become a big thing, especially the last couple of years. So my partner, she's an
Oh,
AD,
she's
so
in
an
the
operator.
industry, isn't she? Does she work for a
Yeah, yeah. She works
jeweler?
for a jeweler's
Mm.
effectively. A you know a very let's say small independent. They've got sort of 5 shops now, but a family business based
Mm.
here in Manchester. Yeah, she was selling watches. She got certified in Rolex, so she got what we call green blood because she went down there and got all of the
I
stuff.
love that.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a whole thing. It's really cool. It's a big thing. She, you know, and I just sort of, I'm just naturally a very, I just love learning new stuff. So I was reading
Mm.
a lot of her books while she wasn't reading them, and I just got really into it myself. And then it just became a bit of a new passion. So, yeah, I've got a nice little collection slowly building, but obviously it's a very expensive game
It is, isn't
be
it?
in. So,
And I guess, this one thing I I'm very lucky to get to go to some of the fragrance events, and sometimes people will, as they did at that event we were at, people will gift you a fragrance.
yeah,
And we know the sort of price parameters of that, but I guess going to watch events, people aren't handing over, thousands of pounds worth of watches. So
correct.
it's
Yeah, I
something
mean,
we'd have to buy ourselves, isn't it?
yeah,
As
it's
it should
funny.
be, as it should be.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. Some of them actually do,
Oh, do
or
they?
have done. Yeah, not to me yet, but I'm working on it. But yeah, no,
It'll come.
no, some of them do, but obviously yeah, it's just part of the game, isn't it? At the end of the day,
Mm,
it's a very exclusive um, sector, and I guess that's part of the interest as well. Is
mm,
just you know a lot of these things are when you really sort of learn around the horology side of stuff, and you really sort of start to look into watches themselves. It is very similar to art. Some of these pieces
yeah,
where
yeah,
it's almost you just it's almost a miracle that these things work because they're so complicated
yeah.
and they are so detailed and layered in these tiny
In
little
such a tiny
contraptions.
thing, yeah.
It's
Well, like you
just
say,
like
it's just another rabbit hole you can fall down, isn't it? And learn. There's
correct.
so
Yeah,
much to learn, and the personalities and the brands and all that stuff.
yeah, yeah. The thing is, the brand stories that I think actually I fall in love with often more than I do the watches. I think
Mm,
when you look at brands like Along Hassan and even like Cartier and people like that, like the history of them, it's quite fascinating when you
mm,
realize what some of them have overcome and what some of them have been able to navigate through wars and all kinds of
yes,
stuff. It's
yes.
quite fascinating. It is quite
And
fascinating.
will people loan you watches sometimes? Is that how it works?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They have actually. Yeah, so I did a
For
partnership.
campaigns and things, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if they want to shoot something, they'll sort of say, you know, here's what we want you to shoot. Feel free to hang on to
Mm,
it for an extra 2 weeks or whatever, but just make sure it comes back as we gave you it.
mm.
No scratches.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. We would need it back as we sent it to you.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, the name of the podcast is Man in the Mirror, Ben, and as always, and I think some of this has come out and sort of been threaded through the conversation anyway.
Mm.
But you're a model, but I wonder. when you're getting ready in the morning, what you think
Mm.
about the man that looks back at you in the mirror.
Yeah, it's a really deep question, isn't it? And I think it's something.
Yeah, sorry for this time of
No,
the
no,
morning.
I think it's a great. I do think it's a great question. The reason why I say deep is because for me, at different points in my life, you'd have had very different answers.
Yeah.
And in the past, you'd have had a very dark and quite somber and probably heavy answer. Now in the present, you probably get a very much more blasé answer, if I'm honest, in terms of what do I actually see. Just see a guy who's trying his best, who's figuring it out.
Mm.
I think that's the thing that we all are. Like
Which
all
we're
of
all
us,
trying to do. Yeah.
none of us have ever been here before, and I think we forget that.
Yeah.
This is the first time we've ever done today.
Yeah.
It's the only opportunity you've ever had to do it, and we only know as much as we know, and that's it. And unfortunately, I don't think any of us really have it together as much as we like to think we do, and
No.
by the way, a beautiful thing. I think that's actually a positive thing. So what do I see? I just see a guy who's figuring it out, and
Mm.
he's good with where he's at, and he's backing himself, and then that's all really matters. Of course, yeah. If you talk about the literal, what do I see are the things that I would love to change or whatever. All of us can nitpick ourselves down to the last detail, but why?
Mm.
Where do you gain from that? You don't. So
But I think also that the fact that you wear it quite lightly is probably a really positive thing for you, isn't it? Because I guess
yeah,
if you're a model, I can imagine it could be easy to fall into that trap of obsessing too much because of course
yeah,
it's your livelihood, but I
yeah.
think it makes a lot of sense, and from the conversations we've had, just yeah, wear it lightly and enjoy the things your appearance gives you, but not take it
Hmm.
too seriously.
That's exactly it. Like from the modeling perspective, at the end of the day, it is genuinely just a job. It's really nothing more than that. It's really not like it doesn't mean anything in terms of who you are or what you are or where you sit in society or whatever. It doesn't. It
Mm,
truly doesn't. It's literally a job, and it's certainly one that like you really do just have to take with a pinch of salt because it's not even about being handsome or being sexy or whatever. It's actually just about fitting these measurements and fitting a brief that
yeah,
somebody wrote
yeah.
up in a head office
It's a
somewhere.
numbers game.
It literally is like it's you're not being booked because you're this stallion who people just must have. You're being booked because you fit the measurements of the t-shirt that just arrived and they need to get it shot quick. That's
Well, I think you're
basically
being
what
slightly modest about it. It couldn't be
well,
anybody, but
well, I don't know. I don't know.
no,
It
but
really
I
isn't. I
I
think
get what you mean.
Yeah, I think like I grew up with that. I think the '90s and the early noughties were quite toxic when it came to imagery
Yeah,
and stuff. It was, this everyone was kind of these ethereal beings that were held on this
and very
pedestal.
skinny, and
Yeah, and it was,
and
if you
slight.
were a model, it was like very extreme.
Mm.
You were sort of perpetuated as sort of godly, whereas now
Yeah,
it's just
deified, totally. Yeah,
hmm,
yeah.
yeah. Whereas now it's just not like that at all. I think it's such a broader spectrum now. Like I say, I'm this plus size guy, so that was
Mm.
certainly not on the radar back in the noughties. So
No, but and as you've explained, I think probably like in so many walks of life, actually to have a lane and have an area that that you're playing in is helpful in a way, isn't it? At least you know
yeah,
the sort of universe of it, and it's clearly working really well for you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. But yeah, yeah. So for me, yeah, but your question, yeah, like I say, from my perspective, just a guy who's pretty content with where he's at, and just seeing what tomorrow brings, and that's it.
Yeah, I really loved that. I think it's such a good answer. And the final thing, Ben, I wonder, maybe outside of work, what are the things
Hmm.
that make you happy and bring you joy?
Um, to be honest, I really like I really like being on my own. I know that's a bit. I
I
know
won't,
that is
I
literally
won't tell your partner.
that is like the most negative thing I think I could. But no, I've realised that
You like your own company, yeah?
yeah, which is, and I say that as someone who's gone through a journey on that front. Who was very lonely growing up, and felt very isolated, and felt very, no one understands me, and I couldn't really connect with people and that kind of stuff. Not on a deep level. And to get to the point where I actually quite like being on my own is actually a really nice thing.
I
So I
totally
tend to
agree.
find I've
Yeah.
found a lot of joy in just the smallest things. I really, it's kind of things that one of the other hobbies I've got is golf. I love golf, and
Do
it's
you
simply I couldn't
go
watch
out on
it
your
for
own, can't you? And
this is it.
alone with your
I couldn't
thoughts.
watch it for the life of me, but I can get out there and just and be however I want to be and have fun. And yeah, I've just realised I probably made myself like the most boring person on the planet, but
No,
it's genuine. It's just who I
not
am,
at all. I
unfortunately.
think
So,
that there's a real strength in being content in your own skin and
yeah,
happy in your
yeah,
own company. And yeah, I do my best thinking. I reckon when I'm out with the dog, just
that's
there you
it.
go.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
simplicities I just started to really enjoy. It. Yeah, it's funny. You grow up and you just go to the pub and you're with all your mates and all that sort of stuff, and there's that sort of bloke in the corner with a paper and his dog, and you sort of look at it and go, "Ah, she looks all right."
Yeah,
That's
he's got it figured out. That's
quite a
good.
nice afternoon, actually. It looks all
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Ben, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed speaking to you, and I knew I would after our lunch chat, but it's been so informative, and given me, and I'm sure the listeners, a different perspective and a different lens on what you do, and you're very thoughtful about your work. But as I said, wear it with a lightness that's really refreshing. So thank you so much. I'm going to put some of the
Thank you.
links to the products, and thank you for if people are watching on YouTube, showing some of the products, but I'll list them anyway, and I'll obviously let people know where they can find
Sure.
you, your big old following on TikTok and on
Yeah.
Instagram, and we'll try and get some new people following you. But thank you so much. Lovely
No,
to
thank
see
you.
you
Thanks so much
and
for your
to
time.
hear from you again. And I'll see you very soon.
Yeah, likewise. Cheers,
Thanks,
guys. Thank
Ben.
you.
Take
Take
care.
care. Bye-bye. Bye.